Walk the Talk America presents Guns and Mental Health, a podcast for firearms owners, clinicians, and the curious public.
Welcome back, listening, watching audience. We are now in the fire horse year, right, Kevin?
It is the era of the fire horse. You've almost missed this podcast twice in one day.
Yeah. So this year is not starting off good, but it wouldn't be a Walk the Talk America podcast unless we had technical difficulties and problems. So we're right in line. And I'm excited about this podcast because I think of our guest as a personal friend of mine who we have been talking for years about coming onto the show. And I always said, like, what would happen if it actually happened? And I feel like it's perfect that we're kicking it off for the fire horse year.
100%.
But I want to bring on the show my friend, all around awesome dude, TV star personality, wonderful human being, gun enthusiast, Ton Jones, man. How are you?
Thank you, brother. I'm excited it actually happened. We finally did it, bro. It's been years in the making and we finally did it together. This is awesome. Been looking forward to it.
I can't see outside of my studio, but I don't know if like cats and dogs are falling out of the sky or like
I know. It's like, dude, we're gonna do the podcast. We're gonna do the podcast. Know what? This year we're gonna do the podcast. Know what? This year we're gonna do the podcast. And finally, we're doing the podcast. It's happening.
It's happening. And on the first year of the fire horse.
Yeah, I know.
Perfect. We couldn't have timed it better.
This is awesome. Been looking forward to it.
So what's going on with you, man? You're in the middle of a lot of stuff. I mean, I thank you for coming on because I know like you're in the middle of a move and I mean, it's been hectic.
Chaos and madness. It's like drinking water from a fire hose. It complete chaos, but that is my life, and that just like yours. If things were simple, we wouldn't know what to do. And
Kevin, this is special for me, obviously, because we finally did it, made it happen. But Ton did something very unique, something very interesting. I think he's our number one listener at this point because he calls me one day. He's like, "Hey, man, I'm on episode 49 or something like." So he like went through and listened to all of our old podcasts to kind of get a feel for this. But that preparation is admirable, man.
I have gone through, and since SHOT Show, I wanted to get more of a feel for. I know what you're about. I support you. That's why I love you and Guns and Mental Health, WTTA, so much. But when I don't know about something, I'm going to research it. So what I didn't know about is all your other guests. And mental health is such a broad net. So I wanted to go back and research people's thoughts, people's opinions, people's perspectives, and just get more than just the people we know as a collective, but other people's insights, other people's point of views, because they're not going to grow unless you get other people's point of views, right, wrong, indifferent. If you don't accept their point of view or see their insight, you're never going to grow as a human being. So I went back and binged as much as I can. I mean, and I did jump. I watched and listened to a block of 20. Then I scrolled up, went 40 to 68, then hit the 90s, then went into the 150s, into I think all the way up 163. Then the ones that really I didn't agree with some of their opinions, I went back and listened to again because I wanted to see why I didn't agree with their opinion. Instead of just shutting them down like, oh, dude, that's bullshit. No, I wanted to hear it again. So I went back and listened to some of those again, and all the way until I tires screeching in the driveway to get here to make it here on time. I was listening. I'm back on 97. So yeah, I've probably, I think I'm over 80 episodes right now. I've
Oh.
listened to, yeah.
We're for time context of when this gets published, we're not even 4 weeks after SHOT Show from when you started. So
Yes.
what did you find? What were the top conversations? What were your favorites?
A lot of my favorites were when a lot of it was statisticians, when you had statisticians on here. Those were my absolute favorites and some of my most hated, because statisticians, it's like going to the doctor. If you go to the, we've had this talk before. If you go to the doctor with a headache and you see an oncologist, the oncologist is going to see cancer. You see a podiatrist, the podiatrist is going to tell you it's diet. No matter what the specialty doctor you go to see for the same ailment, that doctor is going to find something in their wheelhouse to make it about their specialty. And that's what I found out with statisticians is whatever they're researching, they're going to find it majority of the time to fit their statistics. And it was baffling to me, which sent me down another rabbit hole about suicide. I was like, okay. Poor Michael, I was calling him left and right. I felt so bad because guns and mental health, if you look it up, it says firearms are the number one cause of suicide. But I was like, why? Why is that? It's not the number one cause, it's the number one most effective way of suicide. What is the most, statistically speaking, I went and pulled up what is the most common way that people attempt to commit suicide? Narcotics, poisoning, drug overdose. But it also has one of the least effective ways. Then it took me down another rabbit hole to figure out what is the most reported and non reported. The least reported way of labeling a suicide death is by drug overdose. If to be labeled a drug overdose, it has to fit so much criteria that even on the CDC's website, they don't like labeling it a drug overdose. And it says on there specifically, it actually tells you that they do not like labeling it. I had to send poor Michael. I feel so bad for him because I was sending him all this crap. It tells you that if it doesn't meet 4 different criterias of a drug overdose, even if the crime scene investigator, the coroner has proof for a CDC recording, they're not going to record it. And I was like, okay, so let's take all the drug overdoses out of there, all the jumping, all the hanging, all the gassing out. What is the easiest way to determine a suicide? The easiest one is from firearms because it's the evidence is there, it's irrefutable, and on both sides you cannot argue. The end result is 82.5% effective. So once I got to the number of 82%, 82.5% lethality over the suicide rate with firearms, I went down the prevention route. What are they doing to prevent it? The prevention, out of all these people that are doing statistics as a whole, less than 15% of the organizations that are doing these statistics that are supporting mental health, less than 15% are doing anything to actually help any of the suicides. They, but over 60% are helping with drug overdoses, but not the mental health side. They're putting in drug programs. And I was like, what is the purpose? But so I researched those companies that were helping with the drug overdoses, and then go figure, they'll either own an insurance company, own a pharmaceutical company, or work for a conglomerate that owns both. So it's not profitable for either one. I mean, this podcast has actually taken me down more rabbit holes than I ever could imagine. And I kind of felt bad for Michael because I was like, bro, I'm calling him up. I was like, bro, what'd you do to me, dude?
I love it though. It was discussing. Like Kevin, no guest ever calls before or after, right? He's like asking me, like, oh, this one, and then he would tell me these stories. He's like, you forced me to call 4 of my friends that work in law enforcement.
Oh my God. The red flag laws. That's a whole nother thing. What red flag law works? I've called law enforcement since we've talked last, 3 other states, trying to figure out red flag laws that work. I've actually talked to law enforcement in these states, and I've gotten a 100% out of, I think, 18 individuals I've talked to. 100% of them agreed for suicide prevention, 0 red flag laws work. Even one officer, and I shared this with Michael, said that one gentleman that was on the suicide watch list, they removed his firearms, he grabbed his kids, put them in a vehicle, rammed the back of a semi truck at over 90 miles an hour, and killed his whole family. They said if we would have left his firearms with him or something else with him, he would have only taken 1 life. Now the family's gone. So that red flag law killed the family instead of 1. He said, as law enforcement, he knew deep down in his heart that their actions pushed him over the edge. He said he was more stable before we went in, forced their way in, and removed everything from the house. Their actions pushed him over the edge, and they know that they caused that individual to go above and beyond to the death. And I was like, I said, I know it's a real shitty thing to say, but how does that make you feel? He's like, I have to live with that the rest of my life. That knowing our actions, our legal actions that our government put us in caused a death, and me doing my job legally has caused a death. I was like, oh, that's a tough one to swallow.
Yeah. So like for me, like violating someone's Second Amendment right, I'm always going to struggle with that. But like one of the reasons why I think red flag laws, and I've said this before, is a big slap in the face, is that it really doesn't care about the particular individual, right? It's not saying, hey, Mike, like you don't seem to be doing so well. Like, let's remove you from everything in the house. Let's get you help, right? It's
Exactly.
not take the knives, the medication, take the garage door off. There's no real end to it. It's like, let me take this one thing that you could do damage with that has, obviously people have a feeling about, an emotional feeling about, and let's get that out of there, but nothing else.
Yeah, it's like I'm going to stop you from being fat by taking your fork. Dude, what common sense is that? That's like the dumbest shit I've ever heard. We're not fixing the problem. We're not even scratching the surface of trying to fix a problem. We're fixing someone else's complete emotional needs and feelings, not the person that's in need now. And that's what this journey is actually quite frustrating me with, and wants me to fight harder for mental health, and especially mental health in the firearms world, is that I don't have the right answer. A lot of this is my own perspective and my own opinion, which until we get together as a group, we're not going to have a solid answer. But it takes a community to get together to come and to start moving forward, doing what you're doing now. Um, Having people that don't own firearms make laws, that don't understand firearms make laws, is just ludicrous. And I don't get it.
Yeah, it seems like the system was designed to they were gotten into a room and prevent a mass shooting or a mass tragedy, and that was the solution they came up with, but didn't think of all the unintended consequences. And to give people in healthcare and researchers their flowers, when Mike says if someone's not right enough to have their firearm, I don't think they should have access to their car keys, all those. And they not usually non agreements, but it seems like we targeted one horrific incident, tried to reduce those, and now we're creating all these unintended consequences and need to figure out a better way to come about. And it's encouraging that the research community and others involved are coming to get perspective of Watch the Talk America and others and seeing, oh, okay, you guys did a survey and 50% of gun owners said they wouldn't seek help because of ERPOs in your state. That's something that we're now going to consider it in what we're doing. And I think the evolution started, but it doesn't change the fact of the situation that it's where we're at now.
Oh yeah. It it there is a lot of work that needs to be done on both sides of the aisle, without a doubt. And I work with a lot of veterans communities that deal with mental health, and some of these guys have injuries that are deep inside their soul. And we've taken individuals out hunting and shooting that are broken. They're broken deep, and those wounds are have shattered them beyond belief. They've come back to nothing, and we've had talks around the campfire where we know they're potentially suicidal. We've had talks with their family before we even taken them out, saying, "Are you sure you guys want to take them out? They're there's a serious risk to themselves." And over 90% of the time, it's yes, without a doubt. Um, a lot of times we have the perspective that a person that is contemplating suicide, especially for that long, is a lot of times they're already dead inside. Their demons are just carrying them side by side, getting them through life. If they have a reason to be reborn with a little bit of humanity in them, and it's us that do it by taking them out hunting, fishing, having a campfire, and showing them some camaraderie, hell yeah, we're going to do it. We're going to take that chance. Uh, we're not going to let a brother just die there by not supporting him. And we've had one of the guys 2 years ago that I was sitting in a hunting blind next to him, and I could tell that he was just, I'm not gonna lie, I was a little sketched out. I'm like, all right, his family warned me, everybody warned me. We're in a hunting blind. Sunset broke, and you could tell he was fidgeting. And you know that moment where you could tell the world is just not right with this dude. And this axis buck came and crossed out there, and all of a sudden you could just see it in his face. He unchambered the rifle, sat back, and just busted out in tears. And I was like, "Hey, bro, you okay?" And he just reached over and gave me a hug. He's like, "I needed this." He's like, "I fully intended to come out here and blow my brains out." I said, "I got you, bro. We're here." He's like, "And I know my family told you this." I said, "Yeah." He's on, "You still took the risk?" I said, "Bro, you served our country. You're the reason I can come out and do this every day." I said, "I didn't serve our country. The most I can do is come and help you and those who did." I said, "There's no way in hell I'm gonna let you fall, brother." And he just sat there, and I sat with him for probably about a half an hour, 45 minutes while he just sobbed. And it was gut wrenching to me. And afterwards, he's like, "Damn, dude, I missed my chance to shoot." I said, "Know what?" I got on the radio. I said, "Hey, we're gonna sit out here for another 4 or 5 hours." And we didn't get a clean shot. The ranch manager says, "Know what? You guys take as much time as you want." We sat there from 5 o'clock in the morning till 4 o'clock in the afternoon when they came back through. I just sat there with him. Another Axis buck came through. He took a shot, dropped it. I went out there in the field with him, cleaned it, put it up. I get a call from him about every 4 or 5 months. He has his life together. He's stable. He has a family now. He got remarried. Everything has gone back together. And he tells me, he's like, "I could have missed all this if I ended it that day out on the ranch with you." If people don't take the chance on the walking dead, as I refer to them, because they're already dead, they've already had it planned. If you don't give them a reason to be reborn as a human, they're going to take that chance. They're already dead. They're just looking for a way out. Give them a chance to be reborn and be a human again. If not, they're going to find a way out. It doesn't take a firearm. They're going to find a way. Everybody says where there's a will or there's a way. Yeah, it works both ways. They're going to find a way. It doesn't take a firearm. They're going to find a knife. They're going to find a bridge. They're going to find a car, a closed garage. Someone has to have a backbone to just walk up to a human and say, "Hey, bro, how are you doing today? Let me give you a hug." It can be that simple moment that takes them and brings them back to life.
Yeah, honestly, that's you, man. Like every time I've seen you, you've always like embraced me and been warm and welcoming, and it puts a smile on my face. And that is a nice segue into a very cool story that I want to share about you at SHOT Show. We had a senior researcher that was walking around with us. Carrie's she's a friend of the show's. She's awesome. We love her. But it was her first SHOT Show, and at the moment that you saw me, we were walking her around the Ruger booth, and it was Kevin and I, and we were talking about lethality of firearms, right? And Carrie was kind of saying like some guns are more lethal than other guns, and I'm like, well, yes and no, but basically no. You know, how many bullets does it take to actually kill someone? But I wasn't conveying the message right. And Kevin, jump in if I'm telling this wrong. But Ton comes up at the perfect moment, and I love it too because Ton just doesn't, you know what I mean? Like he's coming up, he's all tatted, he's like, "What's up, hey?" You know, everybody's hugging, and it was a perfect time for me to like pass it over to you. And we haven't even got to your background yet, so maybe you can like intertwine some of your background into this. But you were able to walk her around the booth, and you like took like almost an hour of your time, you and
Yeah.
RG from Ruger, like to actually like educate her and bring her kind of into our world to understand this. And to her credit, I mean, she wanted to listen to you because even when I was watching her listen to other people, she would turn to you.
Yeah.
You know, like so it worked out, but that was just awesome. And after it was all said and done, I was like, I love you. You could, like I said, the way you conveyed that message. But I remember you telling me working in Hollywood, you had to do that a lot, right?
Yeah. Um, I started out in the film and television industry really early as a wildlife animal handler. Started working in film and television in 1996. Worked on TV shows such as Man vs. Wild, Shark Week. I hosted Auction Hunters. I was a stuntman. I hosted Auction Hunters for 6 years. I've worked behind the scenes on a bunch of TV shows, music videos. I've been beat up by actors, thrown through windows. Um, and being pro 2A in the Hollywood scene is really unique, to put it best. Sometimes you are the most hated and the most loved by the same person, because a lot of them, saying the Hollywood demographics in the herd mentality, hate firearms. Individually, everyone wants to own a firearm, but they don't want each other to know. They feel that they are the most responsible and they feel safe, but they don't believe the other person should own one. And but they all want to own one, which was really unique, trying to explain to every individual. I have this conversation 30, 40 times a day on set, saying that, well, everybody feels the same way as you do, but if everybody got together and trained together, you'd understand that all of you are safe together as a group. Well, I don't want to train with everybody. I don't want them knowing what I own. I said, the laws you pass to take everybody's rights away are the same ones that you want to keep secret from the world. And then they would get this aha moment, like, oh, damn. So no matter what I have to do, I have to register the firearm I own? I said, yes, especially in California. And they'd be shattered. So I started out in the film and television industry. After I left Auction Hunters, I started working with Air Force air guns, designing high-powered pneumatic air rifles. I was in charge of R&D and ballistics. Worked there for 6 years, set the world record for the longest confirmed air rifle shot at 2,058 yards with the pre-charged pneumatic air rifle. Now I am director of operations at Firebird Targets, also in charge of marketing. I manufacture instant hit recognition flares and reactive targets that explode for the firearms industry and specialty shooting industry for long range instant hit targets, so you can shoot long range and see your target detonate in a huge cloud of smoke, shooting clays. So I spend a lot of my time throughout the shooting industry. This year was my 30th year at SHOT Show. Yeah, my first one was
I feel you.
yeah, you're 29, I believe. Yeah,
Yeah.
29th year.
Yeah.
My first SHOT Show was when I started with a company called Merlot's Cutlery, which is long gone. Then I met Cold Steel. They were one of my very first sponsors. Voodoo Tactical was one of my very first sponsors, and been there as a little snot-nosed brat. And now I'm getting to be one of the old timers, which is a brutal realization. Yeah, I've been in the firearm industry. I was born and raised into it my whole life. And when I saw you and Carrie, I didn't know what her job was. I didn't know what she was doing. You were at one of my favorite booths, Ruger. They are one of the strongest companies, not just in the firearms industry, but the mental health game, and just everything about Ruger is always been so family oriented. I cannot say enough good about Ruger. They support the veterans, they support youth, they support mental health. They are the poster child of what a firearms company should be.
100%.
They're just a great company with a great crew, a great staff. You walk in, it's like walking into a family. No egos, no chips on shoulders. They're always there to help and teach everybody. That's what I love about them. And when I saw you that day, I walked in because that's my boy Mike. I got to give him some love. Came over to give you a hug, and full disclosure, you looked a bit perplexed. I was like, got to give my boy some love just to see how you're doing. Poor Kevin's just was over there going, what the shit, bro? Kevin always has this beautiful ability to have a monochromatic look. Yeah. And I mean that with the utmost respect, because happy, sad, upset, Kevin, every time I saw him at SHOT Show, is like, dude, I want you to be my attorney, because your read is like epic. You're like just perfect, just even flow, no matter how everything goes. I was like, okay, there's Kevin, there's Mike, and you were with some people. I gave you a hug, and you're like, perfect timing. Here's Carrie. I'm like, what?
I put you right in the game. I put you right in the game. You showed up to the game, and I put you in immediately, starting point guard.
Luckily, it was about a subject I know a decent amount about, ballistics. And I knew what she was asking. And I knew where she wanted to go, but the question was not being presented the way both parties could understand. I knew what she meant in her head. I knew what you were trying to answer in your head. But having to ride the line so many times from where I've come from, I was like, I got you, bro. And the order of lethality versus, she was trying to figure out, if you pull a trigger on a 22 pistol versus a 22 rifle, what's the order of lethality? Especially if the pistol versus the rifle can look scary versus the non-scary versus the barrel length versus it was mostly on the barrel length, and then going over the accuracy versus the energy at impact.
And how far Kevin was standing away.
Yeah, I kind of felt bad for Kevin, because he was our theoretical target at distance. But no, you are the skinniest of us, bro. We're easy targets. I mean, there's a lot more meat jelly on us than you. You could turn sideways and everybody's missing you. I turned sideways and you're still hitting a barn, bro. Sorry. Eat a cheeseburger.
Come on, eat something, Kevin.
Yeah, feed that tapeworm. But with what she was trying to get over is, let's say, for argument's sakes, at 100 yards, the pistol round is going to shed a lot more velocity versus a rifle because of the length of barrel. Yes. But getting her to the point of understanding, at point of impact, it's still lethal. The damage is not going to be the same. The accuracy, you're probably going to have a tumbling projectile depending on the round, if it's a subsonic, a short, the powder charge, what kind of match ammo versus other ammo, depending on, then especially if you take it out to 150, the tumbling of a projectile, everything else, everything involved. But the end result is still death. And then it clicked. And then it worked. And then it's the damage versus lethality portion of the conversation came in. And then we got to go in and look at other firearms that were there on display. But getting to that point, it took a little bit. And that's what the conversations need to happen, where some people have to take, because you have to know how and who and where to talk to people at certain times, because sometimes it is not easy. It is really not easy, because Mike, you know 100% what you're talking about, and Carrie knows exactly what she's talking about. But when the questions and the answers don't meet, but even though it's the same question and answer, you have to find a different way around the fence to get to the same answer and question. And I just happened to hit there at the right time. It was just luck.
Right.
But
Yeah.
it
I
was
mean, yeah, to her credit though, like, that was one of the beautiful things about having her there. Right. And it takes a lot of guts, I think, for someone from the research field to actually like walk into that whole room, because
oh, yeah.
just like we have all these preconceived notions about researchers or people in behavioral health, they have that about us, right? That we're not
Oh,
going to
yeah.
be welcoming. And it couldn't have, it was like the perfect storm of greatness. Like you walking up, her being with us being in Ruger, like all the nice things you said about Ruger, which is completely true. And just the fact that both you and RG bent over backwards to like take the time to walk her through everything and every different caliber. And I always call them not a dumb question moment, right? Like any
Yeah.
question you ask, like we're here to answer. And yeah, I couldn't thank you enough. Like,
Oh,
we
bro.
barely got a chance to talk before you had to keep running, you know what I mean? But I was just like, it helped. And she wrote a beautiful, she had a beautiful post on her LinkedIn page about how welcoming the firearms industry is. And I think
Yeah.
other researchers will read that and understand that we're not this boogeyman or these like unreasonable people that won't sit down and have a conversation to educate, where we can. And in the end, we might not agree on the end solution to solve gun violence, but we can have healthy debate, and who knows what can lead from that, right? Like beautiful relationships.
100%. Yeah, Carrie was an absolute delight. I mean, that was probably one of the highlights of my SHOT Show this year, was getting to spend time with you and her in the Ruger booth. And actually, let's be real, after this many SHOT Shows, it all kind of blends together. And to get a moment, just a fraction of a moment, a sliver in time to spend someone, even she is a very knowledgeable, really amazing human being. And her questions, there is no dumb question when you're learning. There is zero dumb questions because the person's learning. And if a person feels they're dumb, that person is ignorant for feeling that way. It so her questions I enjoyed answering everything. When she would look back to see my thoughts on something, I was like, dude, I'm there for her 100% right now. My purpose in life at that moment was to be there to support anything she needed, you needed at that moment, because we're not going to progress any further if someone's not there to help. And there's going to be disagreements on the way. That's part of growing. If everybody's a yes man, no one's going to learn anything. My grandpa used to say, you can be a follower your whole life, but know what you're going to see? A bunch of assholes. That's exactly it. Don't be a follower. Stand side by side and have a conversation.
Yeah, it would have been really easy for really all parts to just check off the box. Carrie could have said she came to SHOT Show and not been vulnerable to ask questions that maybe she thought was dumb inside. It could have been easy for you to be like, oh, this is a researcher. I don't want to step into these waters. It could have been easy from RG at the company booth to be like, ooh, maybe we don't want this at our booth. Go somewhere else. But instead, you guys all had a conversation and educated her. RG got to provide like Ruger standpoint of this is why from our manufacturer, this firearm versus this one. And you got to explain her question of lethality and the misconceptions in the media versus reality.
Yeah. It was really good. That was, like I said, that was probably the highlight of my SHOT Show. Thanks to you.
No, it was like I said, perfect timing. And I absolutely, like I said, the more I think we can extend the invitations to people in the research community, they're researching us. They're researching the thing we love, the tool that we love and we live by. So, I want them to be as knowledgeable as possible and also put like a human face to this, right? Like people always say things like the gun lobby and the gun people. And I'm always like, I hate that because it's making us sound like some weird boogeyman, or some stuffy guy in a suit who's not going to even know I was in a suit, right? But like, who's not going to listen and going to be like this stern, like pray from a cold dead hands. And it's like she gets to meet you and your background and like I said, like I don't think we look well, we sort of do, I guess. I don't know, like the stereotypical gun guy in their head. I think more looks like a Duck Dynasty guy to them. You know what I mean? As
Yeah.
opposed to, you know, there's
I
some really
even
cool
even
people.
in our community, we've had this discussion. I was outcast by our community for the first 10 years. I was like the bad juju for our community for over 10 years. They would look at me like, that's a stain on our community. Let's wipe him off for a long time. And let's be real, the 2A community can be some of the harshest people out there for our own against ourselves. Um, and once we quit the crap, and it's really tough. The one of the hardest things is for both sides is cut the crap. Everybody needs to have a conversation. Nothing's going to get fixed without having a conversation. It doesn't mean fold on everything. It doesn't mean give in on anything. But a problem doesn't get solved by not talking. A simple conversation, find out where everybody stands. If no one finds out where everybody stands, no one's going to know what the issue is. No one's going to know what the problem is, and no one's going to know how to fix anything if even something can or cannot be fixed. Conversations need to be had.
Yeah. That's what I love about it too, is like now Carrie has your contact information. It's one more person besides just Mike and Kevin that she could say, like, oh, well, I talked to this guy one time. Let's see what his thoughts are. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Especially when it comes to like if they're talking about something that might have to do with policy or something. It's like, let me reach out to somebody, see where that problem might be for that community, right? The 2A Second Amendment community. Um, I think more and more reaching out across the aisle and having the discussions, like you said, not compromising on how you feel about these things in the end. Like this crew on this call right now are always going to be against red flag laws. Like nothing's going to change our mind. So no one's going to touch us and infect us, and
No.
yeah, it's like,
Yeah.
but
You can't move forward. We have our feelings about certain subjects. Other people have their feelings about certain subjects. How do we know what they feel if we don't have the conversation? How do they know how we feel if we don't have the conversation? Oh, we put in an email. Emails can be read different ways. I could read you the same block of words, depending on the emotional state I am at that moment, could be read two different ways. People do it all the time. Then they'll ask the buddy in the cubicle next to them, "Hey, how do you take this? Do you take this the same way I do?" And the way you present it can be taken a different way. You can change someone's emotion about reading a piece of paper by the way you present it to them. Let's cut all that shit out. Look someone in the eye. How do you feel? Tell me how you feel. I may not agree with it, but give me the chance for rebuttal and tell you exactly how I feel. It's that simple. It's not rocket science. I just
yeah, no, for sure. I got a quick question for you because I was just thinking about like all the accomplishments you had, and if like even like Googling your name, seeing all the shows and things like that. So you've always had the firearms industry like in the background, right? So you said 30 years ago, like then you get to Hollywood. Like, how did you straddle the line with both, or was there a time when you left the gun industry and went into Hollywood, and or did you always do both?
oh, okay. This is gonna be a long road to hoe, bro. Um, I always did firearms, archery, weaponry. I worked for Levin Industries, which did the doinkers and stabilizers for archery, competed in archery from in the 80s. Wow. Yeah, that takes me back. Competed in the archeries and knife throwing and throwing weapons events in the 80s into the 90s. Started working for the knife company in the early 90s. Started going to SHOT Show 96. Grew up in a firearms household, military. Father was military for a while, then went civilian contract. Grandfather was military. Going to SHOT Show over the years made connections with firearms companies. Working in Hollywood, you're for such an anti 2A community. I worked with more firearms on set than I did at home. I mean, I shot more firearms, antique firearms, rare firearms from these armorers by the time I was 20, 21 than most people did before they were 30. But while that was all happening, I became a phlebotomist in the early 2000s, massage therapist, a veterinary technician, veterinary surgery tech, orthopedic surgery tech for wildlife, ran a wildlife rescue for venomous and exotic snakes, which helped me get into the film and television industry as a wildlife wrangler, studied herpetology, was a docent at the reptile exhibit at Los Angeles Zoo, worked at LA Zoo, worked with a bunch of reptile people, worked with the International Herpetological Symposiums. So, yeah, I've worked harder at not having a steady job so I can have multiple jobs so I can chase dreams my whole life. Yeah.
Y- So like, okay, so because I'm fascinated by it, I've dated and met a few people that have been on reality TV shows, and like, how does that fall into your lap? And it because you're like one of the most humble people I know. Like, so it's not like to me, like I don't feel like you're like an attention whore or anything like that. Like, like you've always been real low key. So it's like, at what point do you realize you're like, man, like people are very interested in just even like you being on Auction Hunters, right? Like
Yeah.
people are just interested in what I have to say and how I roll and my whole aura. Like, when do you figure that out? Like, or do
Well,
you, or like,
it was really weird. There was a time there while I was trying to make some money to pay for my schooling. I was bouncing bars and working at a tattoo parlor.
which
Uh,
is totally on brand for you. That
yeah,
looks like you would have done that too. So yeah,
yeah.
go ahead.
I worked at a place called Psycho City Tattoo for a long time, and I was repoing cars because there's you had to by not having a legitimate real job growing up in the high desert, you have to have multiple jobs. So I worked at a tattoo parlor doing body piercing and modification while going to medical school and doing all this stuff because I felt that I'm a free spirit. I'm going to do whatever the hell I want, but I got to have 5 different night jobs to pay for it all. Go figure. Met a guy named Repo. Repo's like, "Hey, dude, I see you're picking locks. I'd always learn how to pick locks. Back then, you'd get a book. I'd get a book and learn how to pick locks." He's like, "Heard you're pretty good at this." I was like, "Yeah." He's like, "Do you want to go make some side money when you're not working at the tattoo parlor? Come help me repo cars." Sure. Started repo cars for him. I couldn't afford a really nice car. My cars were breaking down. And he's like, "Dude, it's simple. Go to the auctions, pick a car, buy it at auction, run it for a few weeks, turn it back over to the auction back in the day when you could do this, then pick another car at auction." And I was doing that every couple months, just changing cars through the auction business. One day I was at the auction and the auctioneer's like, "Dude, why don't you come to one of our storage auctions?" I was like, "Storage auction?" And he said something very interesting. He's like, it's like robbing a house, but legal.
That's a
I was
great
like,
point.
I was like, what do you mean? He was like, a household of crap. He's like, then you could sell all that crap and make enough money to get a real car. He's like, it's work, but you can make enough money off the stuff that people leave behind and get a real car. So I packed up my stuff, went to a storage auction, started buying storage auctions while working at the tattoo parlor, while going to school, while doing wildlife rescue. Started hitting these storage auctions. I was like, this is amazing. Buying up all this crap, taking it to swap meets, meeting all kinds of crazy people. Did that for years and kind of did it off and on just to make. I made good money. I'd pull about 97,000 a year doing storage auctions. As that was just a side hobby while doing all the other stuff, one day I was on set doing the wildlife thing, and one of the producers told me, he's like, "Hey, dude, I can't meet with you today about this wildlife show. I got to find some crazy bastard to do a storage show." I said, "Dude, meet with me today, and I'll take you to a storage auction tomorrow, and you can pick out some idiot." He leans forward, sets down his phone, and looks up to me. He's like, "I just found my idiot." I was like, "What do you mean?" He's like, "This." I said, "What does this mean?" He's like, "You." I said, "No, bro. I do wildlife and guns." He's like, "But you do storage units, right?" I said, "Yeah." He's like, "You and your partner were making a TV show." I said, "No." He's like, "We'll make a deal. We'll run 8 episodes. If it hits, we're doing the auction show. If it flops, we're doing a wildlife show." I said, "I don't have much choice." He's like, "I can fire you right now and you're back to being unemployed." I said, "All right, deal." Auction Hunters was a hit.
Wow. That's crazy.
Yeah, my life hasn't been normal by no means. It
How,
hasn't been easy at all, but you work in different ways than other people.
how is mental health seen in the entertainment business? We talk about in the firearms of, oh, let's not talk about it. If people say, oh, we're struggling with mental health and that's going to be used against us. But is it an issue that everybody's trying to grip everywhere? That this is going to be my last question. I got to head to dinner because fire horse and scheduling, but I wanted to get this one in before I go.
Mental health, depending on the age of the group you're in Hollywood, is different. Uh, a lot of the younger generation use it as a crutch and a status. They use that as a badge of honor. They use it as a way to get another prescription. They use it as, "I'm depressed. Give me attention, but don't give me attention. Look, but don't look. I need help, but don't want help. But give me help. Give me time off." It is really sad because they use it as the badge of honor as another disability. A lot of the people past their 30s, 35 and older, if they need it, they're serious. And they will actually not flaunt it, say, "Hey, we're struggling, we're having an issue. Give me a minute." Or they won't go and get a group of friends in a herd mentality. "We're all depressed." That's the younger generation group. The older generation group will grab one or two people like, "Bro, I'm having some issues right now. I got some demons." And I've had that talk with a few of them, and it's a struggle because addiction is no joke. Suicide is rampant, but they do it in a different way because some of the laws where they're at is the firearms are not accessible, so they use it in a different way and it won't get labeled as a suicide. They find alternate methods, but it's mental health is all it is a real struggle in that industry because especially with the age of social media, everybody's worried about appearances. No one's worried about what's inside. And the younger ones are more worried about, hey, look at my disability. I'm depressed too. Oh, you're depressed? So am I. Oh, you're depressed? Oh, we're all depressed. We're all going to go sit in the corner and act depressed. And if you're not depressed, you don't belong in our group. Oh, you're suicidal? So am I today. Oh, we're coming up on the 27 club. We should go all commit suicide together. Or, well, look at the party they had for this person that committed suicide. Oh, they had such a great memorial. I wonder if they do that if I had it too. It's a whole nother version of mental illness the younger generation's dealing with versus the older generation are like, dude, finances, cost of living, the world, family, breakup, children, other things are bothering them where they're actually seeking help and they're having problems getting it. It's a struggle.
Yeah, Kevin, are you out? We're losing our producer, ton. It's just going to be me and you.
I'm out.
It-
You guys
And
are
it's good. And we're going to
Fire
sit in
horse.
silence.
Dude,
Fire horse.
everything that goes on from here is your fault, bro.
That's what they keep telling me. Can't blame me for everything that happens.
No,
we can.
Yes, we can. No, I appreciate what you said there because Jake Wiskerson, who's normally a co-host on the show as well, and he's a therapist, says a lot of people end up identifying themselves as their mental illness, right? And he's always trying to say, be careful with that because it's like if you break your arm, you're not broken arm the rest of your life, right? Like, oh, my name's Mike, and my arm was broken when I was 14. You like learn to, grow out of that and get past it once you're healed, and you should be able to heal up here too. And what I find, it's funny because when he said it, I never realized, oh my God, like I am surrounded by people that have made their mental illness their identity. And it's crazy because you can find who really wants to change and then who wants to stay stuck in problem, right? Like I want to get to solution, but some people can't let that go. And sometimes I see it and I'm very sympathetic to people that battle mental illness, but sometimes I'm like, man, like that person is almost using their mental illness as an excuse to do really bad shit. Or, hey, don't blame me because I had an episode yesterday, but it was my bipolar disorder. And it's like, yes, there's going to be some of that, but at some point you have to kind of try to get stuck on solution, get it out of stuck on problem.
Exactly. And that's one of the biggest flags for me is going down this mental health rabbit hole that one of the many that you sent me down while researching this was what it all can be considered a mental health issue, but at what level of mental health issue is it? Is it someone that has now experienced 2 days of depression and realize that if they stay depressed, they can milk the system for their own advantage and they can make other people feel sorry for them and they're getting this negative attention. They're thriving and feeding off of this negative attention, so they're going to be that negative attention. But it's still attention. They want, right or wrong, they want attention, whether it's positive or negative. All they want is attention. But they found the easiest way is I'm disabled because I'm depressed, or I am this. No, you are not that. You are who you are, and you're suffering from something. I'm Ton Jones. I'm not the feeling I am feeling that day. That is not me. I'm still Ton Jones, but today I'm happy, I'm sad, I'm depressed, I'm whatever. I am that day, but that is not me as a whole. And a lot of the issues I've been trying to figure out through this journey is deciphering the people that really want help, want attention, and to seek help, or the ones that just feed off of the negative attention and that's their new permanent disability. It's 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 a struggle. And it
Yeah.
hurts everybody through the whole thing. It hurts the people that are seeking real help instead of the people that are just they don't want help. They want to sit there in this dark cloud that they've designed for themselves, custom tailored black cloud of negative attention. They want to sit and feed off that for the rest of their life versus the people that are like, dude, I got struggles. I got these demons. I don't know how to deal with them. I need to figure out how to deal with them. I don't like to say conquered demons because even in my world, I don't conquer my demons. I let them walk side by side because the second you think you conquered a demon, it's going to come back and whoop your ass, and that's when you fall hard. I let my demons walk side by side with me because sometimes they get me through the hardest shit in my life. And that's just me. I'll walk side by side because as soon as you keep your friends close, keep your enemies closer, dude, we want to find who needs the help and really needs it and help these people deal with their demons and understand them and work through their problems. Not the people who are just milking the system.
Yeah. When you think of your demons, and I don't necessarily think you do it, say whatever you like, right?
Yeah.
But like when you think of like your demons, like what was the hardest times in your life? Um,
There has been a few. I grew up in a normal divorced household, and that's from my era. Ooh, that's normal. 12 years old, parents divorced, completely unreconcilable. Yeah, you know the word.
I got you.
Yeah, especially with all the dental work I just had. Um, parents were unhappy with each other. Older brother went with father, younger brother went with mother. I was the middle child and I went out on my own. I was like, and I learned to survive. And I love my parents separately. I had loved them more than anything in the world. My dad has since passed. My mom's still alive. But at 15 and a half, I had to figure out how to survive on my own. In a 73 El Camino, living underneath a, a road in a drainage ditch, figuring out showering at the Y, doing odd jobs, going to school on my own, meeting up with people at the tattoo parlor to take care of me and making sure I still made it to school, finding odd jobs to do stuff while trying to still succeed. That was rough, but I met a bunch of really cool older people that didn't put up with shit. Um, and say what you want about the biker community. When they see a kid that's struggling, they brought me in and they made sure I did my homework. I mean, when you roll into a tattoo parlor filled with bikers after school and they may be smoking weed, drinking whiskey and Yukon Jack and Everclear, but you get smacked up beside the head and say, hey, boy, you better sit down and do your homework or I want to throw you a whooping. Guarantee you do your homework. And
Right.
one of them tells you, you bring home an F, you're going to learn what an F is. And it stood around for fuck around and find out. And you're like
Right.
being a kid. And it gave me appreciation because my dad worked his butt off at the base, and he literally worked double shifts just to provide what he could. And I know he couldn't be there physically all the time, but I knew he was doing it. Even though I couldn't be with him all the time, I know what he was doing at that young age. I knew that he was trying to provide. And I was still a little punk kid with a chip on his shoulder because parents were gone, and that was on me. I was angry at the world. So I was surviving, but every time I came home, I got a hug. Here's food, here's some sleep. Are you okay? What's going on? And he said, make sure I got temporary custody. I got 50-50 custody. Make sure you go check in on your mom. Even though they didn't get along, but that was a dark time. And I'd drive back over to mom's house, pissed off at the world, stop at the tattoo parlor. This backwards tea. How's your father? Is he good? Did you tell him you love him? Did you check in? If you didn't, you better get your butt back over there. I'm going to beat the tar out of you. Like, yeah, I did. All right, go see your mom. That intermediary was my version of a therapist. My one and only version of a therapist I've ever had was insight from people that were already broken and already burned and scorched from earth. And these guys were damaged. I mean, some of these guys were damaged beyond beyond repair. But they still had enough love for a punk little bastard like me to put me on the right track. Go to school, give your parents love and respect, no matter if you felt you loved them or not. At that time, when you're older, you'll appreciate these moments. I was angry, but I listened. And as I got older, I appreciated it. And then I started, I made it through that rough patch. My first year of auction hunters, I took every paycheck I had, everything I had earned. I said, I'm finally making money. I can get out of school debt. I can pay off everything. I was drowning in debt where top ramen, spam, peanut butter and jelly, and you'd hit the 99-cent discount store and get everything they're getting ready to discard to feed yourself because money was that tight. That's what we survived on. But I had taken every bit of money that I had got from the first season of Auction Hunters and paid off all my debt. Season 2, I was planning on moving. I get a phone call that my house was on fire. While I was out filming, my house was broken into and robbed because they were stealing copper. They robbed my house, took everything I owned, some of my dad's guns, my grandfather's guns, and they burnt my house down. And while they're standing on the footsteps of the sheriff's department, which was 200 yards away, they filmed it and put it on YouTube.
What?
Yeah, it's still on YouTube to this day.
Damn.
So they robbed my house, took everything I've ever worked for, all the stuff, and burned my house down.
I mean, that going through something like that, like just because I think about, like, I'm looking around my studio here and I just think about like everything, like my daughter's baby books, right? Like things like that. And, not everybody has kids, but just things that are memories, things that are just, you can't replace, you'll never get back, right? Like something from the set, something or whatever. Like that's just, I mean, I can only imagine its rage.
My dad's
Like,
dog tags,
yeah, perfect
because
example.
2 years later, I wasn't over it. They'd taken everything, and I mean, they videotaped it, and I got a call from the fire department while I was on set, and they said, "Ton, your house is on fire." And I get on the phone. I said, "What's left?" He said, "Nothing's left." He said, "We're on the roof trying to extinguish it." I said, "If nothing's left, get the fuck off the roof. I don't want you to hurt yourself." He's like, "What about the building?" I said, "Dude," I said, "get off my fucking house and let it burn." Excuse the language, but I was like, "Dude, if he said your house was robbed and we found stuff everywhere, but your house is fully engulfed." I've grew up with half the guys that are firefighters. I said the last thing I can live with is the fact that you tried to put out a house fire that everything is gone from. It's fully engulfed. I said, get off my roof and let it burn. He said, do you have homeowners insurance? I said, I couldn't afford it.
Ugh.
I said, dude, I said, everything's gone. I'll start over. I said, just let it go. And I hear him over the his loudspeaker. He says, clear out, let it go. And the next day it was up on YouTube. I got to watch them, and I watched the firefighter on the phone with me. The guy was sitting on the front steps of the sheriff's department, which was 200 yards away. So they had time to rob my house, time to set it on fire and film it. And they gutted it and stole everything. My dad's dog tags, his rifles, his shotguns, couple of my grandpa's shotguns that were from the 30s. I mean, they gutted everything. And I'm on TV now at this point. I got to be on set the next day. And I have what's in my suitcases that I've been down on set with for a week. That's all I have left to my name. And I was like, how do I start over from that?
Right.
And all I could think about was, well, I could dwell on this, or this is going to be the easiest move ever. Uh, Rage. There was a lot of rage. I said, I can go get drunk. I can go get pissed, drunk, angry, and do something stupid. Or I can pull it together and game plan. I said, I have a hotel down in LA that for filming because it wasn't safe to drive 4 hours each direction to film. Talked to the arson investigator. He's like, yeah, you got robbed and burned. I said, okay. I said, well, let me know if there's anything else you can do. Turned around, drove back down to LA, got to my hotel, and lived there for almost 260 days.
Mm.
I had nothing and saved up enough money again after filming to buy a little itty bitty rundown house in the middle of the desert and spend the next 3 years saving up to rebuild it. And I rebuilt everything. Instead of being angry and pissed off at the world, I took that energy and rebuilt from the ground up and started life over again.
I mean, dude, yeah, that's a hell of a story. And to be able to not be angry at that, I mean, did you ever get any closure with who or why? I mean, it almost seems personal, like when they're filming it to put it up, you know.
It really did feel personal. I tried to get help from the sheriff's department in Palmdale, California. All they did was send me a letter every month if you want your firearms back, if we find them, fill out this paper, fill out this paper, fill out this paper. I did for like 3 years. Every month filled out that paper and helps to get it back. One day, one of the officers, I was turning in, he's all, even if you fill out that paperwork, we're not going to give you them back. It was used in the crime.
Mm.
I said, but they were my father's. They're my property. He's like, it's California. You're LA County. He's like, the odds of getting it back. He's like, play the lottery, kid. Don't be stupid. And that was a few years after it happened. And that was the breaking point for me when I was probably at my lowest, because a week later I went to SHOT Show. I was at Range Day, Media Day, 2015, filming with the TV show, filming with Nissan Titan. They're releasing their diesel Titan that year. Film crew everywhere. My dad calls up, says, "Hey boy, you see anything cool there?" I said, "No, Dad, just filming, doing this stuff." He would call in just to see if there's anything new and new guns. I said, "No, just everything's kind of the usual, just filming." He's like, "All right, just want to tell you I love you. Going to take your stepmom out for lunch. Going to go comb my hair so I don't look like a slob." And we just had a good laugh. He's like, "All right." He's like, "Make sure you call me when you get done and you're back to your hotel room." I said, "All right, Dad, I love you." I said, "I'll talk to you in a bit." Hung up the phone. 45 minutes later, my brother, who's a stepbrother, who's a paramedic in Sierra Vista, calls me. Worst words ever. "Dad coded." And I'm like, "What did you say?" He said, "Dad coded." Found him on the bathroom with the phone in his hand and a comb. He said, "We've been working on him for about 40 minutes. He said, "We stopped in to see him before he went to lunch with Mom, and he had coded." He said he fell in the bathroom, hit his head, open wound, heart attack, no pulse. I said, "What do you mean no pulse?" He's like, "We've been working chest compressions for 45 minutes, no pulse." And he drops the phone. His partner and the other paramedic picks up the phone. He's like, "We're going to have to call it." He's like, "Your brother can't do it." I said, "Is there any chance?" He said, "No." I said, "Then call it." That was the darkest. At SHOT Show, right after telling me that I had no hope to get my dad's guns, his dog tags, or anything back, a week later, go to SHOT Show. He passes away. Lost my dad. Just 5 minutes after I tell him I love him, I'll call him later. My stepbrother calls. My dad passes away.
Mm.
And I had talked to my dad twice a day. Since I had moved out, it was even in the worst of times when I was the most angry with him and pissed off at him, I always talked to him. I'd pick up the phone, even if I was angry. "Love you, Dad." That was the darkest, where I actually felt like there was no soul left and I didn't give two shits about the world. And I mean, you can be, you could think you're on top of the world and everything's going smooth. But when your support system is no longer there, it was brutal. That hurt. That took the wind out of me. That I didn't want to. I physically and mentally did not want to do anything. I was equivocally ambivalent about everything for about a month. I loved and hated everything. Um, it's I love the fact that I could go and be with my stepmom, but I hated the fact that I had to be there over the situation. You find out how family really is. You find out all the shit wrapped around it. I did not get time to grieve because you're taking care of everybody else's emotions while they're going through their own grieving process, sometimes selfishly, because they're over grieving to get attention. And I would just look at him like, this is how you act in a time of need. And I'm like, all right, keep your cool. It took me about 2 months to finally break down and grieve. And it was bad. It was bad. My wife she was my fiance at the time, had just left 4 days earlier to go back to Slovakia. And she'd just landed in Slovakia, just getting back in the groove. We're preparing for a wedding. And she calls me up and I said, Dad passed away. And because it was SHOT Show's January, we'd gotten engaged on New Year's Eve that year in Australia. We just got back to the US to tell Dad that we're engaged. A couple days later, she flies home. I meet with the sheriff's department. Everything goes down. It's just go from on top of the world, we're engaged, to everything's gone. It was a punch in the gut.
Yeah, it's kind of, like you think about like life and the things that are happening, and it's like you meet this woman that you're going to commit to, and you have all these great things planned, and it's just like you take things for granted, right? Like every day you're used to talking to somebody, or and then one day it's gone. And I tell people that all the time. I'm just like, recently I lost somebody that meant the world to me, which is Martin Tuason. He was one of the owners of Arms Corps, and
Yeah.
just a really good guy who believed in everything that I did from the jump. And sometimes I figure like he didn't understand what I necessarily did, but he trusted me and he loved me, because sometimes
Yeah.
I'd hear him explain to people what I do, and I'm like, yeah, not like that. But he just had a massive heart attack, and we're he's 51, I'm 50, and if there's anybody that's done enough damage to their body, where I think you'd always pick me as the guy to go over the other person. But I think about the last time we spoke, and it's just like, we lived close to each other. And every time we talked, it was like you coming on the podcast. We always say like, oh, let's get lunch next week, and usually we just saw each other in the next place, or something
Yeah.
would happen. But it's the grieving process. And it's like, if you're a caring person, I think you're like me. I'm more concerned for other people than myself, and sometimes I have
Yeah.
to remember, like, yeah, you have to go through it too. Like,
Yeah. It's grieving for people like us is sometimes a struggle, because we're naturally want to make sure others are okay, sometimes at our own detriment. And
yeah,
it's not healthy for us. It really isn't. And it can be brutal. Yeah.
yeah.
That
Helping people could be addictive. I mean, like, sometimes it's how
yeah.
you take your mind off of something. You know what I mean?
Yeah. A 100%. Like it was, I made it through the last few years pretty good, pretty stable. My grandfather helped me out a lot after my father died. My grandfather just passed last year, January 8th of last year, at 93.
Wow.
Yeah, but he he was completely he was doing great till he wasn't. A couple days before Christmas, a year ago, he just fell over, got up, said, "I'm not doing good." Goes to the hospital, finds out he has 4 different kinds of stage 4 cancer. And I call
Yeah.
him. I said, "I'm flying back to San Diego to find out how you're doing." He's like, "I got stage 4 cancer. Give me another glass of tequila and a cigar." I was like, "Grandpa, you're not doing well." He's like, "It's called death, kid. Toughen up." I'm like, but that's how Grandpa was. He was very realistic about it. Um, Grandpa had a different way. My grandpa Frank, he was when I flew out there immediately to see him. He's like, "Boy," he's like, "you're going to grieve. It's going to be sad, but celebrate me. Don't be sad." He's like, "I'm not going to hurt. I'm not going to be in pain." He's like, "But it's your time to be the asshole in the family." And it was like with my grandfather's passing, he was, I wouldn't say the replacement for my father because I talked to both my father and my grandfather daily. It was, if it wasn't daily, it was by message or something. It was always a constant communication as a role model. And with my grandfather, when he passed, it was it was a different kind of grieving and mourning. Um, there could be chaos in a room, and we could look at each other and have this moment where it was an understanding without words even being spoken. And he could just, uh, I'd walk by and he'd just grab my arm and just give me a wink, and everything was perfect. He could see when I was at my end, stressed to the max. He'd squeeze my hand and just look up and wink. I'd be like, all right. And he'd smile. Things would be perfect. That was like instant relaxation, and everything was great.
Mm.
And I saw him. I had to leave the day before he passed to come back to Texas, take care of my family. And I reached over. I said, "Grandpa, I'll see you later." And I went to give him a kiss. He said, "It'll be many years before you see me again."
Mm.
And I was like, "Shit." He already knew.
Yeah.
And he said, "I love you, honey." He gives me a kiss on my cheek. And I was like, ugh. And he said, "Make me proud," and just smacked me on the cheek. And he's like, "Go now, take care of your family." I was like, but we both knew that that was it. It was different. And I went back 2 weeks later for the memorial, cooked for the whole family like my grandfather used to. Uh, all of his favorite Mexican dishes. Half my family is Hispanic, either from Mexico or Spain. Go figure. And the whitest thing out there. Go figure. Yeah, last name Islas. But while everybody else is grieving, I did what Grandpa would do during celebrations and funerals. I did what he would do is I cooked for everybody. I didn't grieve then. I took care of everybody. And after 3 days of being out there, I flew home, got in my truck, and I'm driving back during this lightning storm in Texas. And I'm just kind of irritated that he never got to come and visit me and the family here. And it's just one of those weird moments, a bolt of lightning in the middle of the thunderstorm. I'm coming down Chisholm Trail, crashes and scares the piss out of me. And I just break down sobbing. And it was like instant 30 minutes of sobbing, laughing. I was like, I needed that. And I had his little medallion that he would wear on my neck, held onto it. And that's what I needed to get home, made it home. And I was like, I needed that one. I grieved almost within a couple weeks after his passing. I needed that then. It wasn't like when my dad passed, but that was everything I needed in that moment to soothe my soul and make me feel whole from the situation. And we still have pictures all over the place, and the kids remember, and they'll walk by and say, "Hi, Grandpa, hi, great grandpa" on the wall. And that just makes me feel better.
Yeah, man. I always tell people grandmas and grandpas are like the toughest things to lose. You're losing like
Yeah.
so much history, and like my mom loves me. She's still around. But my grandparents, they loved me. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, they just like it's different. My mom had to be the disciplinarian and everything, but it's like when I saw grandma and grandpa, it's like they just love me. And
Yeah.
like I said, you're losing history, you're losing wisdom,
Yeah.
like passing it down. I mean, my grandfather used to always say, like, I went around the block, made a left, went around the block 20 more times. You know what I mean? Like, I wrote every chapter of this book. Like, I'm not stupid.
Yeah.
And one of his lines always was, uh, there's only two people in this world I trust. It's me and you, and I'm not so sure about you. Like that type of thing.
Yep. That's
Uh, it
exactly it. And grandparents are a special part. He taught me a lot about hunting, a lot about fishing. Him and my dad would drag me out, and it's funny because grandpa was my mom's dad, but my grandpa and my dad would take me out hunting and fishing because they were
mm,
living in Southern California where we did all my hunting and fishing, and they taught me a lot about firearm safety. Everything outdoors came from those two. And my dad's father taught me when we go up to Idaho and Oregon, would teach me a lot of stuff. But the majority of it, the fundamentals came from those two gentlemen. And I wouldn't be where I'm at today without them. The knowledge that came from them, the school of hard knocks that come from them, like the M1 thumb that came from them. You learn that the M1 Grand slams hard on your thumb if you don't pay attention. The, and the stuff like hurts kid, don't it? Bet you won't do that again. Yeah.
right.
it all the cooking, the love for outdoors, the camping, everything came from those two. Firearm safety. Oh my god, they were huge on firearm safety. And it started out with a wooden gun, a hand carved wooden gun. You point that wooden gun in the wrong direction, you're getting smacked. It was
Right.
it wasn't you shouldn't do that. No, it was a backhand. You learned the hard way back in the day. It and you learn quick. Uh it I owe a lot to those two men, and it's amazing.
I mean, you just saying like what you just said, I just think about like, how as an industry or community we're so misunderstood over firearms because everyone always thinks it's about like being like overly macho and I have guns and all this stuff. It's like think about what you just said, like the bonding and the history you have over firearms with your family. It's something that brought you guys together and made you closer, that to this day like is still in your head. And like you just said, the firearm safety aspect of it, right? Like people don't realize like we are responsible as a community. The majority
Oh,
of us, yeah, you know what I mean? Like
100%. Before I was allowed to go hunting, before I was allowed to go out, we started with the Benjamin Sheridan Silver Streak 20 caliber pump air rifle. And it was with both my grandpas. We would just take an old pull top oil can and they would set it out in the field and you would start 5 feet back and you'd have to shoot it 10 times and you'd have to hit it 10 times. And if you'd missed, you'd have to start over. And you'd have to do that till you can hit it at about 40 feet. Once you did that, they would take my other Grandpa Jones, would take a big fat marshmallow up in Oregon and he would take it and toss it in the stock pond. and you'd have to hit the marshmallows float in the stock pond. And then if you hit the marshmallow floating in the stock pond, you'd take his foot and tap the water and teach you patience and timing. And once you could finally hit that floating marshmallow, he'd take you out rabbit hunting. And when you go rabbit hunting, you go out with the shotgun, the 20 gauge, and you'd go out and get your first rabbit. He would teach you how to clean it, skin it, and then we'd go back into Grandma Jones's kitchen. We'd cook it, and we'd have it for dinner. Then he would take that pelt, he would clean it off, start tanning it, and he would tan it over however long it was, and he would make something out of the skin. It was usually something for Grandma Jones. She tan the hide so you'd have a rabbit skin pelt. And I remember that was a kind of a rite of passage. And then once you got your first rabbit, he would take you out dove, quail, or pheasant hunting. You had to work your way up to go deer hunt. And that was the same way. And then Grandpa Jones would tell Grandpa Frank, the boys did good. You could take either the oldest boy or the younger boy, or you could take the middle boy out hunting. Or they sucked this year, they didn't do good, you can't take them hunting this year. And we'd be devastated because it would be 6 months to a year before we got to go back up shooting with Grandpa Jones before we can come back and go dove, quail, or pheasant hunting or chucker hunting with Grandpa Frank. So it was both families getting together to teach the youth how to hunt. When we get back with Grandpa Frank, we'd have to be able to take the shotgun down, take it apart. We had to clean it. We had to oil it. We had to lube it. We had to know all the parts, and we had to care for it and store it. Then we'd have to go buck hay, clean stalls to go get our hunting license. Hey, they're not paying for it. Money's tight. You'd have to do chores to pay for a hunting license. We had to do chores to pay for a fishing license. We gladly did it. It was a rite of passage. We learned all this stuff. It's the preconceived notion we're just a bunch of wackos that go into any store, buy a bunch of guns, and go crazy, shoot up in the air. No, there's so much responsibility. When I went with my father to buy my first firearm, I turned 18. I'm going to go get me a shotgun so I can have my own bird hunting gun. My dad said, all right, perfect. I said, did you save up enough money? I said, yes, I did. He said, perfect. Let's go get you a safe. I was like, crap. So I didn't save up enough money. He said, no, you didn't. He just had this shit-eating grin. And I remember to this day, I was like, all right. We ran down to the hardware store. And he's like, you can buy the cheap one that'll hold 4 guns. You can buy the big one. It'll hold all your personal items. All right. So I went back to work. About a month and a half later, I came back and bought the big Canon safe. I was like, and that's another thing. That's one of the thing they stole. They stole my first Canon safe out of that house. And that was one me and my dad picked out together. I got the big Canon safe. And I was like, man. But that was another learning experience. I went with the thought in my head that I'm going to go get a gun. I saved up enough money for this Remington 870 shotgun. And I had a role model there to tell me right off the bat, you got enough money, boy? I said, yes, I do, Dad. He said, nope. Where's your safe? And I was like deflated, but I knew he was right. So we went and bought a safe first. And it took me another couple months, and I saved up. I worked my butt off to get enough money to get a shotgun before opening bird season. So the lessons I learned are a lot different than what the outside of the 2A community think we are. there's a lot that goes on in the teaching firearm safety, responsible gun ownership, responsible storage, aftercare of your firearms. There's so much that I learned before I even purchased my first firearm. Such valuable knowledge that came into becoming a responsible gun owner before I even purchased. I owned a safe before I even bought my first gun. I looked at that
Yeah.
safe. That was my driving force to become more successful. I was like, got it. And I was like, he wasn't even living with me at the time. I was in that little crap hole house, and he would come visit me at my new little crap hole house that I barely could afford to see that this little one bedroom, one bathroom with a living room that was part of the kitchen, but it was mine. And right there in the part of the living room kitchen that blocked part of the bathroom door was my safe. I was like, centerpiece. I didn't invite
Yeah.
friends over because they'd have to step over my bed to get to the kitchen and everything else. It was that's how small this place was. But I did it right. And that's all
Right.
the stuff I learned from the family as a two families that even going through the divorce, the grandparents were there to still teach the kids, even as into my teens, were both there to make sure I was doing shit right.
I love that that story has a canon safe in it too. Not, because I always love when people bring up supporters of Walk the Talk America without even knowing. Like Canon has been really good to Walk the Talk America, and
Oh,
they, yeah. So it's just
dude,
like I love it.
dude, and it's funny because I tell people, and I love Canon safes. I have no deal with them. They're absolutely one of my favorite safes. Um, I own a Canon. I need to get more, but I Canon is one of the few companies I don't know them personally. I love their safes for many reasons. The high quality, they're affordable. They didn't go out and screw the end user. And if I didn't know anything else about them, that's enough to know that I support them. I have purchased, I'm on my third or fourth Canon safe, and I'm going to be getting, I think, two or three more just because the new house I need to it's not set up the way I need to. So I'm teaching my kids firearm safety. I'm a diehard Canon safe fan. And when new gun owners come into the industry, I send them immediately to Canon safe. That's what I started out on. And because of their quality and their price point, I push them like crazy just because their product is amazing. Their price point is amazing. And I've been to, as you know by now, hundreds of thousands of gun shows where not every company has those morals.
Yeah, I'll have to introduce you to Jesse and the guys over there. Really good people, especially next time I see you at a show and they're at the same show. But I had a quick question for you. We're getting up on time, so I got two more questions for you. But one, I what when you made it on television, right?
Yeah.
What was the reaction of like your grandfather and your dad? I mean, they had to have been super proud, right?
It was quite amazing. At first I didn't tell either one of them that I was on TV. And my grandfather was quite amusing. I get a phone call. I'm on set and my grandfather calls and I ring, and just like every day I tell everybody to stop. I said my grandpa's calling and they know to be quiet. I said, "Hey grandpa, love you. What are you doing, grandpa?" And he's like, honey, boy, someone like you's on TV right now. And I hit it on speakerphone. I said, yeah, Grandpa, that's me. Are you sure? I said, yeah, Grandpa, that's me. I said, Grandpa, I'm on set right now filming the TV show. You look fat. And he's like, what are you buying and selling? I said, we're doing storage auctions. He's like, why didn't you tell me you're on TV? I said, you didn't ask. He's like, now you sound like me. It was just this really funny conversation. I said, do you want to say hi to everybody else? He's like, oh, you're really filming? I said, yeah. So I put it on speakerphone. I said, everybody tell Grandpa hi. He's like, hi, Grandpa. And he's like, oh my God, that's so cool. And it made his day. And he was just ecstatic. When my father found out, he was he was still working at the base, and he'd gone into the break room, and I get a phone call. I was already on the way home from set, and my father calls up. He's like, boy. I said, yeah. What you doing, Dad? He's like, you're on TV. I said, took you long enough. He's like, smart ass. he's like, so you got yourself a real job.
Oh, wow.
I said, yeah. He's like, proud of you, boy. I said, thank you, Father. And he's like, we had this really cool conversation. He's like, so what are you doing? I said, buying and selling storage units. You're still legally robbing people's houses, huh? I said, yeah. He's like, well, if you find anything cool, let me know. I said, all right. I said, when are you coming over for dinner? He's like, well, I don't know. I'll call you when I get off work. I said, all right. I said, do you want to come to set one day? And it got quiet. And he's like, really? I can do that? I said, yeah. Do you want to come to set one day? He's like, I would love that. And I was able to, it was 4 months before he passed away. We were filming down by where he lived. I got to bring him to set and make him a producer for a day, sit behind the camera, watch everything. He brought his car down for a day, this 57 Chevy two-door hardtop Bel Air, drove it to set, sit behind the camera with all the producers, and he sat with us for a whole day of filming as one of the producers and watched me on set for a whole day with me at work. For the first time in my life, he came to my job and ate with the crew, ate with us, and got treated like royalty for a day. I was used to going to his work growing up, and it was probably one of my fondest memories. I still have a picture on my phone of the day he was at my work for a day. Like bring my dad to work day, and he said it was this. He said it was so much fun. It was just a great moment.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah,
Yeah.
I love it. Well, uh, last question before we get out of here. How do you tend to your mental health these days?
I keep grounded. I don't let the small things bother me. I remind myself every day that everyone else is going through just as much crap as I am. Some people could be going through a lot more. I do different things like at SHOT Show. After a day of SHOT Show, there's so much stimulation. I'll go fill the bathtub with water and fill it full of ice and soak my feet in the ice water for about 5-10 minutes just to ground myself. Day to day, I put on what they call 8D music. It's auditory music that it sounds like the music is spiraling around you. It helps ground me. when I'm at the airport. Like I told you before, I listen to your podcast. It helps me remember that there's other people dealing with other things. And a gentleman once told me, imagine life as you're walking down the street and there's a pile of dog crap on the ground. You could step over it and move on, or you could step in it and drag it with you the rest of the day. It's a choice you make. I make the choice to try to step over that crap as much as I can. Every once in a while, you're going to make a mistake and step in it and drag it with you for a while. It's inevitable. But when possible, step over the pile of shit and move on. It's that simple. If you take that idea with you, things will get easier. The more you step over it, the less things you're going to be dragging with you. It just made life a lot easier for me, and finding the little simple ways to ground yourself. Every day when I get home, I make sure I kiss my wife and kiss both my kids and give them hugs. Every morning when I get up, before they go to school, I kiss both my kids, give them hugs, tell them to do the best they can. And I look forward to seeing them every night when I come home. Having those little rewards for me make it so I can get through every day no matter what crap I'm going through, because that's my reward for myself. And call a friend, tell me you appreciate them. No matter how long it's been, call a friend, hey bro, I'm just checking in on you. Are you okay? That'll make a difference in someone, because one of these days they're not okay, and that call could save them from doing something drastic.
Yeah. Amen to that. I appreciate that, brother. And I appreciate you and your
Yeah.
kindness and everything about you. I'm so
Yeah.
glad we crossed paths a few years
Yeah.
ago, and I think it was at the goals conference or something. We
Goals,
ended up
yeah.
sitting next to each other,
Yeah.
right? Like, but both found out we
Yeah.
have Slovakian wives, and
Oh yeah.
like, yeah, real Slovakian wives. Which
Yeah.
the other night, listening to them on the phone was really funny, because people always say like, "Oh, my wife's Slovakian." It turns out like she's Slovakian American, right? Like she's not a
Yeah.
real Slovakian. Our wives sound like vampires, like they're really Slovakian.
Seriously, vampires, dude. I wake up worrying that they're going to harvest organs every morning.
But yeah, man. So I love you to death, brother. I'm so glad you
Love you
were
too,
able to
brother.
finally come on the show, and it's everything I thought it would be. And why don't you tell the audience where they can find you? I know you're on social media. Go ahead and reiterate your company again and where they can go to check that out.
Yeah, we're Firebird Targets USA. We're Firebird Targets on Instagram, Ton Jones Official on Instagram, and we're also Firebird Targets USA on Facebook and Ton Jones Official on Facebook. Uh, find me most of the time at just about any gun show, any outdoors event around, usually just trying to smile and make people happy.
That you do. That you do, sir. So I will say this, like I said, there's very few people that I know. You generally always seem to be in a good mood, and I think that kind of radiates off you, and I think that helps people. And if there were more people like you, I think the world would be a greater place. So once again, like I said, on behalf of our sponsors and our listeners, and thank you for coming on. And I know we're going to talk a lot more.
Yeah.
So
Dude, thank you for everything you're doing. I have a lot of respect for everything, and I have a huge appreciation for all you're doing for the mental health community and the 2A community, bro. It's not an easy job, and I know that people don't say it enough, but seriously, thank you, and I appreciate everything you do. I know sometimes it's a thankless job, but thank you. Seriously, you're amazing. Everything you do is amazing, and I wish there was more people like you out there.
I appreciate you, brother. And on that note, until next time, listening audience, we wish you better mental wellness. Thank you.